Bro, you being late today makes me angry. I just wanted to share that with you. I'm turning a new leaf, trying to practice healthy coping mechanisms.
Yeah,
You
no.
make me angry.
Well,
It's the gut level. It's the gut level. Yeah, it's the gut level. It's the gut level.
You have now tuned into the Gut Level Podcast.
Rome. Happy Friday, brother.
Happy Friday, young CB3.
It's a good day. Episode
Back
number
at it
4.
again.
Back at it at the gut level.
Dude, episode 4, bro.
Yeah.
Seems like it's been like 8 or 9 episodes, maybe even 10.
I like how you bring that up, considering those are the ones that are sitting in the private stash to be maybe one day released.
Yeah, maybe, possibly. You know, look, everything's available for the right price.
Yeah, it's not just that. It's like it's back to that saying that if when you first do something you're not pretty embarrassed by it, then you're waiting too long, right? And I think that
100%.
at least we came out of the gate and recorded 5 or 6 episodes that we weren't really ready to launch, and
Yeah,
we got some good mics and
it
some
was
things.
good practice for sure. But, even after like 2 or 3 episodes, it was like, all right,
Yep.
we could do better.
Yeah, of course. Well,
But here we are now. Episode
here we are.
4.
What are we talking about today, Rom?
Good episode today, man. Good episode.
Yeah.
We are going to talk about one of my favorite things in the whole world.
Okay.
Kidding. But today we are talking about anger, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Boom.
I know that we've talked about this, and I know that it's going to be, as we say every week, a banger.
Yep. Banger.
But the nice thing about this week is you and I do have a real contrasting experience with anger.
We do.
So I think it'd be nice for our community and our viewers to kind of hear us and how we experience anger and how it comes out. And, I guess all this stuff to talk about today with, is anger okay? Is it good?
Yeah.
Is it okay to be angry? Right? How does this get a little bit ugly when it comes out and comes out sideways? And, also, why are men angry? Which
incredible questions. And the reality is what's cool about this topic is it's relevant to everyone, right? It's an emotion that we all have. And, to be honest, like we all deal with and handle in a different way. We all have different perspectives on it. So it'd be cool to dive in, share our perspectives and kind of break it down. Like some of those questions. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it right? Is it wrong? How do you deal with it? Oof.
Yeah.
So much to dive into.
Yeah, and I read a bunch of articles this week, and there was a lot of interesting. If you just type in "why are men angry," like that's that's a fun rabbit hole to go down a little bit. It's just to see all of the differing opinions, and one thing that was like that resonated with me though is it said actually fundamentally men aren't more angry than women. Right. So we both, as you mentioned, we both experience this emotion, right? And like men aren't more angry than women are.
Wow.
But interesting, and I know we'll talk about this probably some later when we break this down, but is men are perceived as angry more because the way that we're built physically, the tone of our voice, and that anger can, in certain situations, come out in an aggressive way. Right, for us. And so we tend to be a little bit more tied to, men are really angry, but a lot of it is based on the way that it comes out. So anyways, it's an interesting rabbit hole to go down. So for those in our community that want to go down a bit of a rabbit hole, why are men angry is a really fun Google search.
Yeah. But before we jump into today, last week, man, last week was good. I was rewatching the episode, and getting ready to get it uploaded and out there for people to view. And we had changed some things about the format, but even just what we were talking about last week, the conversation of, do men suffer in silence? Why do men suffer in silence?
Right.
Talking about kind of, the stigma around that, what the common beliefs are out there. Very, very interesting. And I think that it's a conversation that, we certainly can continue because there was so much more to be explored around that topic.
Yeah.
So, for anyone that hasn't checked out episode 3, please go back and watch it. I think it's probably one of our more insightful episodes that we've done thus far.
Well, for sure, and I absolutely a part 2 coming, and we had contemplated doing a part 2 right now, but
Right.
I think we've got the perfect guest to come
Yes.
on and help us with part 2, and so we're going to hold on that a little bit. So again,
Agreed.
stay tuned because we're going to
Yep.
have an absolute expert and just incredible man come in,
Mm.
as a guest to really help us, dive more deeply into the suffering and silence, but also that inadequacy piece. And so
Right. Right.
this idea that we're inadequate as men and we experience the world in a lot of ways through that lens. And so, yeah, I'm really excited
Mm.
to circle back to that at some point too.
That'll be a good one. That'll be a good one. But before we dive into today's episode, here's a short disclaimer. Hey guys, welcome to the Gut Level. Look, as always, we appreciate you tuning in and checking us out. But before we get started, we do want to share a couple things with you.
The Gut Level is a safe, inclusive community, you guys. So as long as you identify as a human being, you are welcome here. So whether you're a man, woman, LGBTQ, black, white, brown, gender non-binary, you're welcome here to a first-hand, real-time accounting of men's transformation and growth. You might ask, whose? Ours.
Yeah, look, we started this channel to help men evolve by creating connection and inspiring growth, with the point being to really remove that experience of isolation and the aloneness of being a man.
And when we remove that, what happens? We become a part of a tribe and a community.
Yeah, look, disclaimer, we do not have the solutions nor the answers, and we are not experts. Our only qualifications is that we're just two regular ass dudes
helping to normalize men's humanity one experience at a time. So, welcome, like the video, subscribe to the channel, join our community below, and welcome to the Gut Level.
Enjoy the episode. Good stuff. Good stuff. Just want to reiterate that we would love for you guys to join our community. So please, if you can, like the video, comment down below some of the questions that we asked today, and subscribe, join the community, be part of the tribe here at the Gut Level.
No doubt.
No
And
doubt.
as always, 4 questions. Let's start it off this week. Rome, rapid fire. What's a book that is helping you?
Ooh, good question. Well, it's on topic, and it's a book that I've been reading for a while, and it is called Anger: Handling a Powerful Emotion in a Healthy Way by Gary Chapman, New York bestselling author of The 5 Love Languages. And I am currently reading this book for the 3rd time, and I've only had this book for a couple months. But I can tell you that as far as books that I've read on anger, this has been one of the best this far in not only breaking down why I get angry and how I get angry, but in healthy coping mechanisms for handling anger. So, great book. We'll link it down in the description below. If you are struggling with anger, I would totally recommend that you check it out. Anger: Handling a Powerful Emotion in a Healthy Way by Gary Chapman.
Well, and bonus feature is check out the 5 love languages as well. So we'll throw a couple other Gary
Another
Chapman
great
books
book.
down in the description because he's an absolute boss when it comes to this. So little
Yes,
bonus.
there you go. Now, question number 2, Chris. What is a routine that is currently making a difference in your life?
I've started to bookend my days with a power up and a power down time that I schedule during the day. So my power up is literally like handling all the stuff that's going to help me be successful through my work day in particular.
Okay.
So it's a time I schedule every morning, get into my emails, return any voicemails from yesterday, get on, build some
Nice.
content, respond to anything on social media, just kind of clear out, right,
Mm,
everything from yesterday so I can start today real fresh. And then at
right.
the end of the day, and this is the one that's awesome, the power down is the
Power
same
down.
thing. I think about it from the perspective of I'm ready to move on from my work day into the rest of my evening or my day.
Okay.
What I do, again, all my emails, return all my texts. I get on social, respond to comments, right? Close that out. And then I do a little bit of a spiritual practice. So I
Mm,
close all that work stuff down. I pull the yoga mat out. I sit down, do some postures, a little bit of breathing, a little bit of meditation. When I come out of that, it's literally like I've been able to close off all the work that I did during the day. And now I feel fully refreshed, rejuvenated, and ready to roll
that's
for the
good.
rest of my day. So it's this beautiful kind of break between all the stuff I've been doing during the day and now really allows me to focus on what's important, relationships, taking care of myself, making good food, things like that. So power up, power down.
Power up, power down. That's
Yes,
good,
sir.
man.
Question number 3.
Mm,
What's a YouTube channel that you've found impactful?
impactful. Okay. This is a good one. I spend a lot of time on YouTube. Most of what I watch is just goofy nonsense entertainment.
Okay.
However, there's a couple YouTube channels that aren't that, but the one that I have recently found to be most impactful, also most insightful, is a YouTube channel called Men Are Good. That's
Hmm.
the title of the YouTube channel. It's done by a man named Tom Golden, who is an LCSW,
Okay.
which is, a licensed social worker or therapist, you know. He's got a, extensive background in that. And what he does on this channel is he tackles some of the same topics that we're talking about, men's issues, insecurity. He even dives into some other issues, and he comes from the perspective of a licensed therapist with, 40 years experience plus. And so, although some of the stuff that he says on there, I have a differing opinion and views on, most of it is fantastic because at the very least, it's starting to open a dialogue of some of those conversations, which, is similar to what we're trying to do over here at the gut level. So I think that, probably in the future, I would like to reach out to him and see if we can do some cross-platform collaboration because, it's excellent. So YouTube
Cool.
is called Men Are Good, which, when it comes to YouTube channel titles, pretty good. I like it.
Definitely. Sounds pretty relevant.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
link down below. Check it out.
Yes. So, question number 4, Christopher. I already talked about a book that's currently helping me, but I would also like to know, what are you currently reading? Like right
So I
now, what do you have
so,
open?
so I just finished this morning The Gift of Influence by
The
Tommy
gift.
Spalding. Quick premise is
Okay.
that he ran math and suggested that every human at the end of their life will have impacted enough people to fill an entire stadium. So 80,000 people. He says every
Damn.
single day, every human impacts
Wow.
2.8 people per day. And that's a minimum, right? So some
Wow.
people impact a whole lot more.
Right.
But the premise is like basically, staring mortality in the face and looking backwards and thinking that every single day, every single moment, every single time we interact with another human being, we're impacting this person.
Yeah.
And at the end, like if all of the people that we've come in contact with filled a stadium, right? What do we want to be remembered for and known for? And so
Mm,
it's been an incredible book just to, again, kind of slow down, think about like the nuances and the small moments that happen every single day. And how do I want to show up to the
yeah.
people in my life, the stranger on the street, the homeless guy
Right.
on the corner, right? Every single person. And so, yeah, it's been a great book. Definitely recommend, check it out. The Gift of Influence, Tommy Spalding. Yep.
Dude, that's fascinating. It's not something you often think about, but it's true. We
Yep.
come in contact with so many people.
For
Sounds
sure.
like a good read. I'm gonna have to check that one out.
No doubt. And look, for our community, guys, we would love to have you answer the questions below. So again, we'll throw the
Please.
questions down below as well as a quick recap. Obviously, all of the links and descriptions of stuff we've talked about. But in the comment section, get down there, throw some stuff at us. What are you reading? What are some YouTube channels?
Mm,
What's a routine making a difference?
yeah,
Like just dive in, help us to learn too, because we're just as much on the journey with you guys as you are
for
with us.
sure. For sure. Good, 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 good. Good, good, good. Well, questions out of the way. I guess it's time to kind of get into it. Today's topic again is anger, the good, the bad, the ugly. And as
Mm.
always, we start with one topic, two experiences, three invitations. The topic today, anger. The two experiences, ours. So, Chris, why don't you start us off? What is your experience with anger?
I was such an angry kid.
Mm,
And looking back, and being able to break that down a bit, because we talk about that anger is really a secondary emotion. And so I think for me, right,
yeah,
I came across as such an angry kid all the way up until about 23, 24 years old. And the underlying emotions that were happening for me was there was hurt, there was sadness,
right.
and there was a ton of fear and
Yeah,
pain. And so what would happen is I would mask all of that by coming across as angry. Um, because, and this is some of what we talked about last week was, if I were to be perceived as weak or
right.
insecure or in touch with my emotions or my feelings, then I would be looked at by my peers as, not enough of a man, not enough as
Right.
of an adolescent at the time.
Right.
Um, and so, you know,
Weak.
yeah, completely. And
Yeah.
so my anger came across in this way of like, stay away from me. Right. I was so
Mm,
afraid. And we talked a bit about this in an earlier episode around just
mm,
being bullied as a kid. Um,
yeah.
and then just being like, at some point, realizing that if I was to come across as someone that was really angry, it was actually a protective mechanism. Right.
Right.
And so that was a lot of my like early like adolescence and then even young adulthood was really building up this whole persona of like, don't fuck with me, right?
Yeah.
Like you should be afraid of me, right?
Right.
And behind that was I was actually terrified,
Scared.
scared shitless, and just really
Yeah.
scared of how you would potentially hurt me. And so I used anger to keep people away at
Mm,
that point. Now, when I say 23, 24 is really when I began to, in some way, explore my emotions and change my life and get
right.
sober and things like that. And anger, I think at that point really almost became off limits.
Oh yeah.
And when I say
Oh.
that, so it's like it was this thing that I think I was so scared of to go back to. Was like, I
Mm,
just don't want to be the angry guy anymore. I don't want to be the angry kid. I don't want to show up this way. And I like did everything in my power to like not feel anger. And so, that in itself then became this really interesting last 15 years of my life where, and it's only been recent. And that's why, I love the gut level. And I love that, like, this is just like real time accounting of
Right.
growth, because
Yeah.
it's literally within the last couple of months that I've been able to say, no, anger actually is really present for me. But what I've done is I've pushed it down so hard, trying to keep it just away, and like it wasn't okay to touch. And so
Oof.
it was easier to touch, pain or hurt or
Right.
some of these like deeper underlying things. But I was so afraid of the anger, because I think that, like, before, right, like it would come out in rage, or, I would get in a fight, or I would yell at someone, or, right, it would come across as like a pretty aggressive um,
Right.
manifestation of it when I was young. And so it's only been recently that I've actually been able to say to someone, I feel angry,
Oof.
and to not have it come out sideways, to not have it come out as like super aggressive or some of this other stuff, but to actually
Right.
say, this is a feeling I'm having, is anger. And yes, underneath of that is also pain or sadness or hurt,
Right.
but the anger is also real, right? So even though I say
Yeah.
it's like a secondary emotion, it still is an emotion, right? So I still feel it. And so for me, I've just been spending the time the last couple of months getting in touch with that. Um,
Mm.
and when I get angry, it's been important to say that this is okay, but also to not let it come out sideways. And
Right.
I'll absolutely share that it has come out sideways. Definitely not a perfect man, perfect being by any means, but it's been
It
the first time in
happens.
my life I've been able to express it in some ways that have been really healthy. And the
Mm.
benefit I've gotten has been huge as a result of it. Um,
Wow.
so yeah, just yeah, it's been a heck of a journey with anger for me, from this is my go-to emotion to keep people away and to stay
Right.
safe and to not be perceived as weak and insecure, to, oh, totally stay away from that, don't want to go back to that. And now it's really finding that middle ground, and really becoming, having a healthy and mature relationship with anger. So
Dude, that's awesome.
there's my
That's awesome.
perspective.
That's awesome, man. It's like two different sides of the same coin.
100%. Yeah. So, Roman, tell me about anger. Tell me about your
Anger.
experience with it.
Anger, anger, anger. You and I have different perspectives on anger. We also have vastly different ways of handling anger. And our journeys are somewhat similar with anger. But over the last couple months, I think, what you just shared about coming to like healthy terms with anger and learning how to handle it, I'm still not quite there.
Mm,
But as far back as I can remember, I was angry, but not in the same sense that you were, right? I don't think I ever used anger as um, a means of protection.
okay.
You know, for me, I've always felt that there's two types of anger, and I don't know if this is true at all, but I felt this way. I felt that there was justified anger and there was unjustified anger.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is like one of them is okay and the other one's not. And my entire life, I've felt justified in being angry. I felt like, you know, uh, anger was necessary and like I deserved to be angry. And what I mean by that is that I was angry that my dad walked out of my life when I was a kid.
Right.
And then I was angry that my mom couldn't get her shit together and ultimately went to prison and lost us.
No
And
doubt.
then I was angry that I had to go and bounce around to so many different foster homes and group homes.
Yep.
And then I was angry that, when I was adopted, it wasn't what I was used to. I was
Mm,
angry that I wasn't the best hockey player or basketball player or football player. I was angry about everything. and I felt righteous in that
Ah,
anger. Like I deserve this anger, you know? They did me wrong.
got it.
I didn't have a part in that. I had no part in my dad walking out of my life. That was him. He did that to me.
Sure.
Therefore, I have every right to be angry. And I let everyone know that. I let people know that I was angry. I never, as a kid, anger was not the emotion I pushed down. I pushed other emotions down: shame, guilt, sadness, a big one, right? I didn't cry as a kid ever,
Yeah.
but anger was the one I wore on my sleeve. And if you crossed me and upset me, you're going to pay the price for that. And what happened was that over time, people started paying the price for my anger for things that they had nothing to do with.
Got it.
You know, my adopted parents, like, bless their soul, they saved my life. They changed me and my brother's lives forever. They brought us together after we hadn't seen each other for years. They saved us. And I can recall, that first couple of years being adopted, treating them like complete garbage for no reason. All they did was love me, provide for me, take care of me, and save my life. But I was angry, and therefore nothing else mattered. And we talk about our similar journey and kind of, around the same age. For me, it was like 23, starting to change my life, dive into therapy, deal with some of these internal issues, deal with some of these traumas, deal with the PTSD, how to deal with emotions, becoming more emotionally intelligent. And I have in so many regards, but the one that I've almost refused to touch was anger.
Mm,
So here I am today, 34 years old, and I have a pretty good sense on, the shame, the guilt, the trauma. Like I've dealt and done a lot of work with a lot of that, but anger was never one that I touched because I never perceived it as being bad. I never perceived it as being wrong. And I always felt so righteous in my anger. And, I no longer am angry. I've been able to forgive my birth father
mm,
and forgive my birth mother, and with that, a lot of that anger disappeared. But I still get angry today, and I haven't necessarily been able to, on a consistent basis, find healthy ways of dealing with that anger. And for me, anger has always been explosive, which I know we'll dive into when we start to break this down. But the characteristics of my anger are a bit different than yours. And today, what's odd is you've come to this place where you've started to look at anger as being healthy. It's no longer necessarily, it's something that you can talk about openly and
right.
you can address and say, hey, I'm angry. For me, man, I've always been righteous about my anger and felt it was okay. But recently, I've started to feel shame every time I get
Mm,
angry.
got it.
Like, like I should know better. Like I'm
Sure.
not that person anymore. I'm not the scared, 9-year-old kid, who's mad at the world because I have to grow up without parents. I'm not. I'm 34 years old. I should know better. So now every time I get angry, man, I start to beat myself up. I experience shame and guilt and feel like a failure because I'm unable to handle it properly or, properly digest it, which in itself is a completely new, um, place of being for me because I've never been like that my entire life. And now I am. So it's strange. And I think part of it is, natural growth and maturation. But, you know, another part of it is also that the last couple months I've been reading a lot of new material on anger. The book I mentioned earlier is one that is a go to for mine. And so I'm
Yeah.
becoming more aware of internally what's happening. And then also aware that how I how I act in anger is my responsibility. you know, being angry isn't necessarily bad or good, but how I act is my responsibility. And so if I don't handle it properly or handle it in a healthy way, then I feel shame about that,
Mm.
which whole other conversation. But yeah, that's my experience with anger.
Well, I appreciate your vulnerability and I appreciate you breaking it down. And I like how you brought up the idea of awareness and, that being in so much of what we talk about, just generally speaking, being aware of the things that are going on with us as men, really being the kind of jump off point for being
Yeah,
able to do something different if we need to, or, at least taking a deep introspective look with some curiosity as to what's, why is this going on?
totally. Totally.
Yep.
To be able to take in accounting, an accurate accounting of what's going on is,
Right.
you know, place to start. I think that's
For
where I'm
sure.
at right now.
Well, then let's break this down.
Oof. The
I
breakdown.
mean, and maybe a good place to start, and you brought it up, is we talk about we started the episode with saying, anger, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Right.
And I would love to ask you about the justified anger, right?
Mm,
Is that okay? Are there justifications for the anger? Are there not? Is
right.
it how we rationalize it? Just let's start there. Just curious.
Yeah, that's a good place to start. And look, I want to reiterate, we are not experts, right? We are just regular ass dudes. So
Ask Asking the questions.
asking the questions and sharing our opinions. And, we may be completely wrong.
Well, and for the community to dive in down below and let us know what your perspective
Please.
is on anger, and
Yes,
to connect into that with us. And we've got different experiences with it, but we know that probably
totally.
takes innumerable forms. So let us know down below in the comments, what your perspective is on anger, the good, the bad, the ugly. So
Totally. Please do. Yeah, look, justified anger is like, I don't even know if that's like a real concept, but for me it's always been, really prevalent in my life because I grew up as a kid with the understanding of an eye for an eye,
mm,
right? I was really big into like payback and revenge.
got it.
Like, you throw a stick at me, I'm gonna throw a stick back at you. But like, I'm also going to win, right? I have no interest in losing. And so therefore, the only way for me to really process what was all the trauma that was happening as a kid was that I had to be the victim in my life. In order
Okay.
for me to like continue living in the world that I had created in my head, I had to be the victim, which means that I couldn't take any responsibility for anything. And the fact is that a lot of things had happened to me that weren't my responsibility,
Right.
and therefore I was justified in, how I felt about it. But then what happened over time was that I started using that justification against people that didn't deserve it, in situations that didn't deserve it. So then, there became a difference between justified and unjustified anger.
Okay.
The best example I can give is, justified anger is if somebody, you know, cuts me off on the freeway and flips me off as they're passing by and I get angry at that, like, fuck that guy, right? What a
Right.
dick. It's justified. He did
Sure.
something to me. I didn't
Yeah.
deserve that, right? But unjustified anger is, for instance, when I'm on a phone call in the car driving and I lose cell reception because I'm driving through a mountain, and then I get pissed off at that, right? Well, how is that justifiable? And who am I mad at, right?
Mm,
But then the person that dropped, I dropped the call on, I get mad at that person because I'm driving through the mountains. So it's like, today I'm able to see that I do have responsibility in a lot
Got
of
it.
these things.
So it's that like radical accountability piece. Like the justification is based
Yes.
on you did this, therefore I'm going to do this,
Yes.
which I mean makes complete sense to me and is yeah,
And look,
absolutely.
I don't know if that's right or wrong, but it's just kind of how I operated.
Well, I'm not sure we're here to determine or to put a judgment or right some
Right.
final answer on it. I think that like it's what your experience has been, and I have to imagine. I mean, that's been my experience as well. That a whole lot of other men and just humans in general, feel
Yeah.
pretty justified in their anger, whether it's back to childhood stuff that went on with them or ways that they've been hurt by
Right.
others or things like that. And I like what you said that it's a great example when I lose service in the car and I start to get really angry, it's actually like, what am I angry about?
Mm.
And taking a curious look and asking the question, oh,
Ooh,
what am I really angry about?
that's
Right.
good. That's good.
Which is just, which then sometimes we're willing to ask that question. Sometimes we're not, but this is the gut level. And we're about asking the questions and asking the hard
Right.
questions.
Well,
And so
well, to that point, Chris, like how do you get to that place where you're able to in that moment be curious and ask the question? Because this is, I think, where our experience with dealing with anger as it comes probably is a bit different, right? So how are you able to just like not react, ask the question, what's going on, and explore it?
I mean, that's a huge question. I'll try to be as simple as possible in my response,
Okay.
which for me, I needed someone to point out to me that my inability to express anger towards people that had actually done stuff to me, that had hurt me emotionally,
Mhm.
was prohibiting me from being happy. And I was like, huh? I was like, I
Mm.
feel like I've processed all this stuff. I feel like I've looked at all this stuff. I feel like I've come to terms with all these things. Um, yeah, and it wasn't until that, and it's funny,
Wow.
to me, it happened actually. It happened in a therapy session, and at first, I told my therapist I'm not willing to go there, and it was the first time she was like, "Huh?"
Ooh.
And I was like, "I'm not touching that." And and
Ooh.
and she finished the session saying, "Hey, like, look, you can do whatever you want. You're the one that's paying to be here. But
Right.
ultimately, like, I can tell you right now that until you're willing to express this anger, whether it's to me, whether it's to someone else, you are going to continue to run into the same problem over and over and over and
Mm.
over again."
Wow.
And those were what I would call justifiable anger, right? But not in the
Yeah.
way of doing it in some sideways way. Just people had done stuff to me over the years. Things hurt,
Right.
right? But I wasn't willing to say that I was angry because for me, it became so
Mm.
off brand
Off
and kind of
limits.
off limits to be able to
Yeah.
do it. So that was my journey into being able to touch it. Um,
Damn.
yeah. I mean, so to me, it's about awareness. Like, how do I ask that question? It's for us. I say us because I just know it's pain. Like
Yeah.
when whatever's going on in my life becomes painful enough, I finally am willing to take a look because I don't want to be in the pain anymore. And if I don't want to be in
Right.
pain anymore, then I have to be willing to ask the right question. And I used to say this
Yeah.
working with people a lot is that when the pain associated with change, right, outweighs the fear of that change, that's when we ask the question
Mm.
because there's a lot of
Boom.
fear. There's a lot of fear associated with asking the tough questions to ourselves.
Yeah.
So for me, what
Totally.
happens is when the pain gets greater than the fear is, I go there. I ask the
That
question.
makes
I've got the
sense.
awareness.
That
Yep.
makes that makes perfect sense. Pain is the best motivator.
Pain is pain is a wonderful motivator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great, man. Shout out to your therapist. Going there,
Yeah.
taking you
Yeah.
places.
Yeah. She checks me when I need to be checked.
Dude, that's so valuable to just have someone to help hold you accountable. Because like you said, it's like we struggle to hold ourselves accountable, especially when we don't want to look at things or go certain places. We just won't
Yeah.
unless, the pain.
So I'm curious when we talk about, and we're going to go here, is when we talk about the ugly.
Mm,
You talked about the anger, coming out and being, really reactive, and you
yeah.
use the term explosive.
Yeah.
So I relate to the term reactive. That's absolutely how my anger comes out. Right, I just click in and like I'm ready to go.
Right.
I'm From your perspective, and just as we break this down, what's that about? What's the explosiveness about? Do you even know what the explosiveness is about, or the reactivity?
Man, I'm trying, right? Like awareness is the first step. In this book, it says anger is fed by feelings of disappointment, hurt, rejection, and embarrassment. Anger pits you against the person, place, or thing that sparked the emotion. It's the
Mm,
opposite feeling of love, right? So for me, anger and love have always gone hand in hand.
okay,
I grew up with the lack of love. Therefore, I grew up with an abundance of anger.
got it.
It just makes sense. The explosiveness of the anger is in part that I've never had to really deal with it. And that's entirely on me because I've had years and years and opportunities to deal with that. I've been in therapy since I was 16, man, and I never touched it. I've had therapists call me out and try to hold me accountable, but I said no
Right.
because there's nothing wrong with it. So righteous in my anger that I was never ever going to look at it.
Mm,
And the reality is that for most of my life, I have punished people because I'm angry to the point where anger for me became the catalyst and launching off point to hurt others.
got it.
And that is, I can say, wrong. And the reason I can say for me that that is wrong is because in that time, man, I've hurt people that didn't deserve it. I've burnt bridges and ruined relationships with people that I cared about and that cared about me. I've lost opportunities. I've embarrassed myself. I've embarrassed others.
Mm,
I've, let people down. I've let anger get the best of me in times that was unnecessary, you know? And I think that a lot of the shame I feel about it today is because of that. Because I look back and I see, kind of the carnage. And I think typically when you think of explosive anger, for me, in my mind, it's like, the guy that I guess partly is because this is my experience of seeing, my mother be, you know, physically abused as a kid, witnessing that. So for me, like explosive anger is the man that like beats on his wife or something when he's angry.
got
And
it.
so because I've never been that person and because I've never done that, I've never thought that I've had explosive anger or that it's been bad because I don't do stuff like that. But the truth is I've thrown down with guys playing pickup basketball game for them saying, something smart. I've fought people over perceived disrespect, you know. And when I talk about explosive anger for me is when something angers me, I start to feel it in my feet, and it's like my whole body starts to heat up and it
Mm,
rises to my head. And then I feel like my face and my head is on fire. And what happens is that my fists start to clench and well up. And then I get in like a defensive stance. And like my natural instinct is to fight, right? I'm angry. I want to fight. And if there's a person that's making me angry, you know, that's what I want to do. Now, if I'm just in the car and I drop the phone, then what I do is I have the same reaction and explosion. And then I throw my phone in the back seat and I start smacking my steering wheel, you know. And if I'm out doing whatever, like I'll explode. I've yelled in public. You know, I was at a coffee shop, and I literally like dropped my coffee and it fell on the floor, and I was like, "Fucking motherfucking!" People are looking at me like, "What the hell is wrong with this guy?" You know, and then it's like, you know, moments after that, I'm able to be like, I'm able to process it, but by then it's too late. You
Got it.
know, it's like emotion hit. I feel angry. And then it's like, oh shit, you know, and that's when the guilt and the shame is like, damn, fuck. I've never been able to pause. And I
So,
know that you've talked about that.
well, yeah, I mean the pause button is probably like one of the best tools for me, and probably for a lot of us with angers. Can we hit pause long enough to not react, right? To not
Yeah.
explode. The one thing I want to bring up is that we had a conversation last night about you actually dealing with anger a little bit differently.
Yeah.
So
This is
I'm
true.
not even saying we need to break it down. If you want to, we can. But when you say never, I don't think that's actually totally true, because there was a scenario last night with you, kids' basketball game, being asked to leave the basketball game for absolutely no reason
They got
outside of
kicked
the
out.
fact that a ref bumped into you while you
Yeah.
were standing there with your daughter, right? No harm, no foul in a sense, but you know, the ref asked you to leave, and right, that would typically have been a moment to, you know, probably get pretty angry. So I'm just curious, as to like, what did you do last night that was different from some of these other experiences?
Well, look, man, I did get angry.
Yeah.
And my saving grace last night, because look, I was at my 14-year-old son's basketball game with my daughter, and my parents had come. It was the first time they've been to a game all year. And so they were sitting in the stands, and yeah, I was walking her back from the bathroom. I bumped into him and I turned around and I didn't say anything. And he's like, "You are out of here." And I was embarrassed, man. I was
Mm,
so embarrassed in front of all, you know, my peers, other parents, my kids. I was kicked out of a basketball game. And so, yeah, dude, I was angry. I was so angry. But what I did was I looked down at my daughter and I looked up at my parents. And I've disappointed my parents enough, you know, for
mm,
this lifetime. And I refuse to disappoint my daughter on purpose. I'm sure I will, and I'm sure I have disappointed her, but I'm not willingly going to. And so, like, that was my saving grace. What I did was I told her, go sit up with your grandparents. And I turned around and I walked out and I waited outside for somebody to come talk to me. And then when that person did come talk to me, I had another opportunity to explode on them like I normally would, fuck up their day because they've messed with mine. They've embarrassed me. Again, that was justified. I had every justification to lash out, talk shit, yell, cause
in
a
your head.
scene
In your
in my
head.
head. Yeah.
Yep.
But their saving grace was when I turned around and walked outside, they didn't immediately follow. So I had a couple moments, you know, 30 seconds to a minute of sitting outside by myself where I think I was forced to pause.
Mm,
And in
got
that,
it.
when they came and talked to me, I shared that, I didn't think this was right. And I asked who I can file a complaint with. And then I left. I didn't cause a
Mm,
scene. And I came on here last night and told you about that. And I was proud of that,
right.
but when I do break it down, I think that, had my daughter not been there or my parents not been there, both of them not been there, it may have gone differently. And
Yeah.
also, had they followed me outside immediately, things could have gone differently. It didn't.
Yeah, maybe. But the universe gave you an opportunity yesterday to
Yeah.
do things differently. And I think the reason I bring it up is when I hear things like never, right? Like I never or I
Yeah.
always,
Well, it's
that like there was actually a different experience yesterday. So when you talk
yeah.
about like feeling the shame around anger, right? Which I mean, shame probably is one of our very close next episodes coming up,
Oh, yeah.
but is like, I think what's so important for me and for our community and just humans is like, we've got to be able to take the wins when they come to and start to be able to say, hey, I did handle this differently. Because you can come up with a million reasons why,
Yes.
oh, it happened only because of
Yes.
this that I dealt
Yes.
with it differently, but you
True.
still dealt with it differently,
That's true.
right? Which is a win in an
Yeah.
otherwise scenario that like maybe you haven't experienced a ton of wins in. So I
Right.
just felt like I wanted to point
That
that
is
out.
true. That is true, and I appreciate you bringing that up. Look, we were talking about books earlier, and here's another one: Anger Management for Dummies. Right? Which, if you've ever read any of the For Dummy books, they're like broken down in the most simplest layman terms ever. And what it says on like one of the first pages is it says that anger is not good or bad. It just is. But how you act on the anger could be good or bad, your choice. And
Mm,
one of the things that fascinates me when you describe anger is, for me, a lot of times, last night I did well, but a lot of times I don't feel like I have a choice in how my anger comes and how I react to it. And I know that that's a cop out and it's not true, because when you tell me about anger, you say it as if like, okay, you get angry and then you make a choice about what to do with it. And I guess I just don't understand that.
yeah, I mean, look, one of the most recent episodes of being angry that I handled well was in a scenario with my partner,
Mhm.
and something had come up,
Okay.
and I had gotten to a place where, and this wasn't even till like 5 or 6 hours later, where I
Okay.
felt it bubbling to that place that you're talking about, where
Yeah.
like this is about to come out sideways. And so actually what I said was, hey, I'm going to take off. And I did it in a way of the best in that
Mm.
moment, just saying, hey, like I got this coming up, like I'm going to take off. I was
Mm.
like, okay, cool. On the way home, I put on some very angry metal music that I've started to
Ah,
listen to with heavier training, which
there you go.
another topic, another day about
Right.
physical training and mountains and blah, blah, blah. But for some of the harder workouts, I've started to listen to like some really rageful music.
That's good.
And,
That's good.
um, and so like the whole way home, I'm like, I'm just like feeling it. Same
Stewing.
thing in the feet, in the body, in the hands. I'm gripping, my teeth are clenched, and I'm just like letting myself rage. Right. But there's no one
Mhm.
around. I'm in my car. I'm driving, I'm trying to drive like a normal person and not like an asshole. But I'm just like letting myself feel it. And
Right.
like I got home, and then I just like started doing stuff around the house that I knew I needed to do, but I threw my headphones in and I was still listening to the music. And it was just kind of like
Mm.
almost this way of like letting myself feel what was
Feel the
happening.
anger.
Well, and at that point, it had transformed really, in a sense, to like a stepped up version. So I'll use rage, and maybe we have to break
Okay.
that down at some point. The difference, I
Yeah.
don't actually know it well enough to say it, but like I let myself literally just go through it. And then I did not communicate with that person the rest of the evening. I just
Mm.
simply sent a text, said, hey, I'm heading to sleep. I love you. I'll see you tomorrow. Right. And I didn't really want to send the text. I wanted to send a very different
Right.
text, but I
Of
didn't.
course.
And so, like, for me, it would just became about like, let me manage this in a way where like I can feel all this stuff, but I don't have to take it out on somebody. Also,
Mm.
because I was in this place where I realized the thing that was making me angry,
Mm.
yes, it was a scenario that would, it hurt, but I was really feeling hurt. And so like when I could tap into that, I knew that there's no way I could justify
Yeah.
like hurting this person because they had hurt me. And so I let all this happen. And then the next day I came together and I actually was able to talk about it and say, I feel really angry. This is why I feel angry, because I'm hurt and I'm sad. And right, this
Mm.
was painful and this and that. And like it dissipated. And then I was able to just go on and like have a nice day with this person. So it was like literally one of the first times ever. And I had told her this. I said, it might be one of the first times ever I've expressed anger to a woman. And our viewers might be like,
Wow.
what? But I mean, like, actually expressed it in a way that's not explosive, that's not
Right.
reactive, that's not like, all right, I'm justified and you did this, so I'm going to do this.
Right.
It was like this very healthy processing. So, like, look, I'm not sure that listening to metal music and letting myself rage out for a
I
couple hours
mean,
is the answer. I'm just saying in that moment, it was the answer. Was like I just let myself be in it
right.
and I focused really hard on not hurting the other person.
Well, and it sounds like what that allowed you was the restraint of pen and tongue.
Right. Yeah, and that's that pause you talk about, right? So it's like as soon
Yeah.
as we can just have a pause, just enough. Like I feel it and I'm angry, but let me pause before I do something, before I
Yeah.
say something, before I write something, before I push send on this email,
Mm.
right? How many times have you been angry about a work thing or whatever? And like you hit
Countless.
send and you're like, I really wish I didn't send that, you know? And it's
Yeah.
like just enough pause in
Mm-hmm.
there. But now let's, and again, I want
Great
to
example.
continue to move a bit. I mean, we've talked about the ugly a bit, right? And like,
Yeah.
let's just touch on good and bad some. So we actually, I think I've touched on a decent amount of good, right? And you have
Yeah.
as well in talking about anger for dummies and like anger is there. It's not good. It's not bad. It just is. I think when we talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, it's to break that down some, but also how it comes out.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, where do you want to go from here in breaking this down?
I mean, look, we talked good, bad, ugly, right? Anger, good side, anger, bad side, and then the ugly is just like the cat. I feel like the ugly is the aftermath a lot of
Mm,
times because what happens in here is neither good nor bad, right? It just is.
right.
I think anger is a defense mechanism, right? Like there's a reason that we're
Yeah.
pre-programmed with that emotion, right? It's like a defense mechanism. It allows us to make a change. And then the bad part is when you either stuff it down and ignore it, or it becomes like, and like, takes over and it's all you think of and you feel justified and therefore you punish others. And then the ugly is just like how you act in that anger in a negative manner. So I guess the question that I always think about is I feel like my shame a lot of times comes from like I feel like I should know better, but it's also because I'm unique, that this is a problem that only I am dealing with. That somehow, because I get so angry and it's so often and I lose my cool, that like I am a bad person. Other people aren't dealing with this. But then I talk to you and you share about your angers. And earlier you talked about, men, not necessarily being angrier than women. We just show it more. And I wonder, I just wonder why.
Yeah.
Like, why do we show our anger more than women? Because before you said that, I would say that men are far angrier than women, for sure. You just don't see a lot of women really like showing that emotion in my experience.
Well, I think, I mean, look, we talk a lot about, here around just the norms or the belief systems and
Yeah,
how we're conditioned. And I think that, women primarily have been conditioned to internalize their emotions, right?
that's
So
true.
like turn all of them inward
That
because,
makes
right,
sense.
you know, how many times have you heard,
Yeah.
women can't be aggressive, they can't be assertive because it comes across as aggressive, and they
Yeah.
can't speak up because then they're perceived that they're, nagging people or whatever, right? So I mean, there's so
Yeah.
much conditioning, I think, for women to turn inward with their emotions because of the way that they've ultimately been treated,
Yeah.
in our world for, thousands of years, tens of thousands of
That's
years. Um,
good take.
and I
Yeah.
think that, so I think with us, it's, I think people see it more because we're physically bigger, right? We
Right.
physically are a certain way. Our body language changes,
Louder.
right? There's
Yeah.
so much intergenerational trauma that women have experienced at the hands of men
Yeah.
that when we get angry, right, something triggers in their nervous system and goes, well,
Mm,
I've got to be really protective of myself because
that's
this
true.
person's big, they're looking at me, right? Their language is aggressive. If they're explosive, that's probably bringing up other stuff.
Yeah.
And so I think that, like, there's that sense that, like, men externalize their emotions better through anger in particular,
Yeah.
although we're pretty notoriously shitty about expressing other emotions outwardly, but like anger is a
Totally.
go-to, and then
Yeah.
women internalize them. With this, though, the other piece of it is when we internalize anger, right, then it turns into what you're talking about, which is shame, and ultimately, which is one of the leading causes of depression in people, is internalizing anger,
Mm,
because then it turns into shame. I'm a bad person. I can't do
right.
this. I'm a
Right.
failure. I'm not good enough. I'm inadequate. Right. And like those are just like the keystones of depression. Right.
Dude, that's what that makes me think of right now is that in relationships, right? I've always kind of felt like when I'm in a relationship with a woman, I cannot be angry. And it's for some of those reasons. Like I know that, women, have experiences in life where, they can be defensive and, they try to protect themselves. And with my own upbringing, my experience, like I'm hyper aware of, what some women go through. So in relationships that I've been in, anger has always been like a off limit thing. Like I can't be angry. I can't show anger because I don't like I want to protect this woman that I care about. I don't want her to get defensive. I don't want her to, start stressing out. I don't want her to break down. I don't want her to be scared at all. That's the
Right.
last thing I want in my relationship. So what I
Yeah.
do is every time I start to feel angry in a relationship, and it's been the only place I've been able to do this, show that restraint, is I shove it down and I don't allow it. But oftentimes what happens is it comes off like I don't care,
Right.
in instances where maybe anger is appropriate. I don't show it at all, and
Yeah.
therefore I'm often perceived as I don't care, you
Well,
know,
and
or I'm unattentive.
and what a door that opens
That's been
is
devastating.
when we don't share our emotions with the people that we're closest with,
Yeah,
they perceive it as we don't care.
yeah.
Right. And then that
When
causes more
actually it's the
problems.
opposite. Yeah,
Right. And that causes more problems. And
yeah,
right. And so much of this is our inability to kind of go, hey, in there, all this is going
yes,
on. Right.
yes,
But when we don't, then it's perceived that we don't care. We can't show up. Right. All of this, which leads to more problems in a relationship.
right.
And so, yeah, like what a, we use the
Yeah,
term self
I mean,
fulfilling prophecy or,
when you talk about being able to talk to your partner about your anger, for me, I'm just like, whoa, that's like a baffling concept because,
mm,
like, I haven't done that, and that is something that I'm committed to working on. But also, just for any lady that's out there listening, like, I just want to say that it's not we do care, and sometimes it's because we care that we think we're doing what we think is best, and for my case, um it's never to show anger, like not an ounce of it.
well. And then no matter what, right, no matter the intention, it's still until we can do this and we can open
Right.
the heart and say, actually, this is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm experiencing. And we do it in a healthy way
Oof.
without, and look, without the idea that like, oh, she can't handle this. Right. Like
Yeah.
that's another
Yeah.
big one for me, which is,
Yeah.
you know, we're always, we're always pulling threads on new episodes for sure. But it's like when I think that she can't handle it, that's so much of my own shit.
Yeah.
Like, dude, women are badass and like they don't get
For
nearly enough
sure.
credit. And like, you know what I mean? And so it's like,
For
who am
sure.
I to say that this person can't actually experience me feeling anger, me
Yeah.
feeling whatever I'm
Totally.
feeling is totally this like, I don't know what it is, but this super selfish,
And
almost, I mean, for me, it's almost condescending. You know what I mean?
it
Like
is.
you can't handle this. So like, I'll handle it for you. And it's like, that's
More
not
so, it's
healthy
like,
at
I
all.
think I know what you can and can't handle.
Right.
And
I
it's
know you
not just
better
with women.
than you.
I do it with my children too, because again,
Yeah.
like try my damnedest not to show anger to my kids. And that's entirely because my own fucked up history and experience and trauma is so that I never want my kids to think I'm angry at them. So I don't show it. And that's again me thinking that they can't handle that emotion. So,
Sure.
that's like a whole nother
Oh yeah.
rabbit hole. It's like we pick and choose, because another place is like oftentimes it's like in a workplace environment, like I'm far less likely to show, certain emotions, but especially anger. And
Yeah.
it's like, but at a grocery store with complete strangers, I'll fucking cause a scene. No problem. It's like that's an interesting concept as well. It's like
Right.
pick and choose, you know?
Oh yeah.
Strange.
Mm-hmm.
Strange people, man. Us humans.
The human experience.
The
So
human experience.
I guess to wrap up this section, I'm curious what are your key takeaways from both of our both of our perspectives and breaking this down a little bit.
Well, I mean, just like based on our perspectives that we've both shared, I think it's interesting how anger changes over time for us. It's one thing when we're children and adolescents, teenagers, young adults, and now to where we are today. Anger is like every emotion, it's ever changing, right? And ever evolving. And as we continue to grow, our understanding, our experience, and how we handle and react to certain emotions changes too and grows and evolves. So that's an interesting key takeaway, I would say, the awareness part of that. The other thing is, we talked about the good, the bad, the ugly with anger, which implies that there is a good with anger, which, I'm not sure a lot of people would think that or know that. But it's true. You know, there are goods of anger. Anger isn't, automatically a negative thing. It certainly can be, but it's not automatically. It's an emotion, one that we all have, you
Right.
know. And then the ugly is our responsibility, you
Mm.
know. How we act in anger is our responsibility. The Bible says it clearly, right? It says that anger, to be angry is not wrong. To act in anger is.
Mm.
So, key takeaways, man. What do you think are key takeaways from today's episode?
I mean, one that's resonating with me right now is we started the episode talking about how we influence others and the impact we have on others, and
Yeah.
that
Mm,
being able to look at from the perspective of if I'm going to fill a stadium with 80,000 people that I've come in contact with or touched or influenced in some way over my life,
yes.
do I want my impact to be, with a lot of those people being hurt by the way that I've showed up in the world. So that's one that's just, it's more resonating like on a deep level for me.
Yeah.
I think that like anger, we experience it, it's real, it's okay, right?
It's okay.
Like it's a feeling and it's there.
Yeah.
It's secondary typically to something else. So am I hurt,
Pain,
scared,
hurt,
embarrassed,
there's
disappointed, right? Like what's really going on under there? Um,
pull back
and I
the
think that,
curtain.
yeah, the reactiveness, the explosiveness, and I like how you said, it's totally fine to be angry and to express anger in a way that's healthy. It's not. I'm not going to say it's not okay, but it's probably not something I want to be doing of
Right.
acting my anger out towards other people.
There are healthy ways of expressing it, as
Yeah,
you've shared about.
yeah. And then I think like my like probably biggest footnote here, and not footnote, that's not the right way to say it. Maybe one of the biggest here is that when we as men become angry, we need to be aware of our surroundings,
Mm,
because the way that we express anger sometimes, especially if it's explosive, especially if there's a physical component to our body changing and our physiology changing and our eyes and right and are clenched, and that
yeah,
like I want to be aware because I don't ever want to impact somebody, like you said, not wanting someone to be scared,
right.
from that, and everybody out there is dealing with something, right? And
Yeah,
most of the time we got no idea what it is, and so
no
for me,
doubt.
I want to make sure that I continue to just be really aware of when this stuff comes up, to be really present with it and not to impact somebody in a way that I would never want to. So
Especially people that we care about in our
yeah,
lives, you know, and stop discounting people. Don't
yeah,
think you know what's best for them.
for sure.
Allow them to decide for themselves.
And for our community, like jump down, tell us what the key takeaways were from today. I mean, we all experienced this stuff, and so we want to hear from you guys in terms of
Please.
what are your takeaways as you've spent the time with us and listened to this and connected,
Yes,
in some way with the way that anger, is relevant in your life, or the way that you've seen this stuff. And I
please.
definitely get down and let us know. I continue to love being curious about all this, and I know that we
Totally.
want to continue to learn as well.
Yeah, if you have any advice on how to deal with anger, how do you manage anger? What are some healthy coping mechanisms that you've picked up over the years? Please share them.
Yep,
Want to be a sponge, soak it in. We want to
for sure.
learn, grow.
Well, and let's dive in. One experience, two perspectives, three invitations every week. These invitations are for our community, you guys. So all of
Yes.
us. And so really, again, taking the time to become aware
Hmm.
of this stuff, becoming aware of anger, right?
Yeah.
What barriers exist to even us becoming aware of our anger or wanting to look at our anger or the stuff that's underneath? What are those barriers?
Right.
And then what's our call to action this week, you think, this week, Roman, for our community?
Well, I would say that probably the biggest call to action that is all encompassing would be simply to maybe a good place to start. We talked about, awareness, kind of pulling back the curtain, getting an accurate accounting. So that's probably the best place to start is I would just ask you to ask yourself, why am I angry?
Mm,
Right? You talked about hitting the pause button when that anger starts to come up. But even before you get angry about something, maybe just ask yourself right now, what are some of the things that I'm currently angry about? Right? And start to explore, where has anger manifested in your life? And I think that that'll probably lead you on to some further exploration of, you know, why are you processing the anger the way you are? Why are you managing and dealing with anger? Why are you acting in anger the way that you are, right? You want to start kind of exploring and digging deeper. So, call to action, look inside. Ask yourself some deep questions about anger. Where's it come from? Explore your history with anger.
I love it. Well, there you have it.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Episode 4, all wrapped up.
In the books. Guys,
A
thank
banger.
you so much for tuning in, checking us out. It means a lot to us. You know, two dudes started a podcast because we wanted to have conversations like this. So that means that your input is much appreciated. Comment, like, subscribe.
Check us on all social platforms at The Gut Level. Shoot us an email, thegutlevel@gmail.com. As Roman always says, we will respond. We promise.
We will. We will. Love you, bro.
Love you too, brother. Appreciate your vulnerability today.
Likewise.
Love it. Have a fantastic weekend. Have a beautiful day, everybody. We love y'all. Join us next time at The Gut Level.
Gut level for life. Bam. Interpretive dance.
Oh, yeah. Monologue part 68.
What you want to do is you want to use your arms to interpretively dance.
To distract.
Yeah. Like, look over here. Haha. Stole your pizza.